at 2 o'clock, I emailed my wife and I said, hey, just so you know, I did this thing online. It really blew up. And she was like, oh, that's great. And an hour after that, I had an email from a producer in Europe who said, I'll give you $10,000 right now for what you've written. And if it becomes a screenplay later on, I'll give you 100,000. So by the time I got home that night, it was already kind of a foregone conclusion that this was worth, you know, thousands of dollars. It was crazy. It was just absolutely crazy.
The story of James Irwin and Rome Sweet Rome, this week on Upvoted by Reddit. Welcome to episode 1 of Upvoted by Reddit. I'm your host, Alexis Ohanian. If you haven't checked out the first episode, episode 0, featuring the story of Dante Orpilia, download that as soon as possible. Go ahead, download it. I will be here waiting. You will not regret it. Dante's story started with a post to r/IMO, but today's episode kicks off on another popular Reddit community, r/AskReddit. This episode focuses on what can happen when inspiration strikes on your lunch break, and some old-fashioned storytelling connects with real-time online engagement. It all started 3 years ago when James Irwin responded to a pretty interesting question. It was posed by the_quiet_earth. And it was a question about whether or not a modern-day Marine battalion could defeat the entire Roman Empire, all those dudes with swords and spears and whatnot. James read this while he was eating lunch, thought about it for a little bit, and started writing. This Reddit comment would change his life. But before diving into the story of James Irwin, we're going to pay some bills. And just so you know, we're going to cue up some sponsor music. This episode is brought to you by Igloo. Igloo is an intranet you'll actually like. An intranet software solution built with easy-to-use cloud apps like shared calendars, Twitter-like microblogs, and file sharing. Igloo is even free for up to 10 people. So try Igloo today at igloosoftware.com/upvoted. This episode of Reddit's Upvoted is also brought to you by FreshBooks. Accounting can be frustrating and mundane, but it doesn't have to be. FreshBooks makes necessary accounting tasks like time tracking and invoicing a breeze. Exactly the kind of thing you shouldn't have to worry about when running a business. For a 30-day free trial with no credit card required, go to freshbooks.com/upvoted. That's freshbooks.com/UPVOTED. Now, the story of James Irwin.
So I am 40 years old. I was born in Iowa, grew up in Iowa, and went to school in Iowa, live in Iowa still. It's weird because I've never really felt cut off. I've never felt parochial because from the time I was a kid, I had the internet. You know, growing up, it was weird because on the one hand, I was really outgoing and I would do plays. I would go up on stage and do open mics, do improv, and so I had no problem being in front of people, but I also really was uncomfortable around people. It took me a long time to get used to people. It's more of an abstraction.
James's fascination of learning about people from the outside looking in led him to develop a serious passion for history.
History was something that I had been interested in for a very long time. And all it came down to was I wanted to understand people. And literary history is kind of how a lot of folks, especially young men, come into history in the first place, because there's this real excitement to combat. It's really, I mean, it's terrifying and it's brutal, but it's also, there's this exhilaration. And, you know, when things go right in combat, it's the most amazing thing. And, I mean, it's something that I've been fascinated with almost as long as I've been reading books. In terms of seeking knowledge, when I was in high school, I once sat down with a stack of 26 volumes of Homer Magnum's Encyclopedia, and I went through it cover to cover, looking for interesting things that I had not learned about.
So inevitably, James put his encyclopedic knowledge to good use and applied to be a contestant on the TV show Jeopardy!
I think I had tried out 2, maybe 3 times. And so for me to get on the show from that, that was I mean, that was a lot more than anything else. The biggest thing I did to prepare for that was I actually sat at home. I stood at home wearing a suit and tie. I was standing behind the couch, which was at podium height, with a pen in one hand, and I dragged over the floor lamp and showed it. I shined it right in my left side of my face, and so I did everything I could to focus on the screen, focus on the answers, and get these external distractions out of the way. And so when I got to California, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done this already 100 times. I mean, I was up on that stage, and all I could see was the board. I wasn't terrified of the cameras. I wasn't looking at the audience. People next to me were shaken. I learned this from a teacher in high school, and it always stuck with me. Like from the first day I saw this painted on this wall, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. I won Jeopardy twice. I didn't win it 3 times. Sorry, sorry, but I did win it twice.
But like the majority of most Jeopardy stories, James's came to an end, and he had to assimilate back into everyday life.
I went from, like being a guy, I had a big adventure, and now, I'm going to have families. Obviously, back into the daily grind. I'm going to be just, like a straight ahead guy now. And so then, so I just raised my child and played with, I had fun with my family and went to my job. I was actually doing technical documentation, so user manuals, websites, that sort of thing for financial services firms here in town. A friend of mine said, are you on it? You got to check this out. And so I said, yeah, I'll check it out. So I browsed it for a while, I worked for a while, and I said, I'll create an account, I'll start commenting. And it took maybe a week before it had come dangerously close to taking over my life. It was amazing. And then one day in the lunch hour, I roasted wrong happened, and the whole cycle started over.
And I need to read this. If you're not familiar with it, it was on the Ask Reddit community. And this post bubbled up one day 3 years ago. It said it was a user named The Quiet Earth asked, could I destroy the entire Roman Empire during the reign of Augustus if I traveled back in time with a modern U.S. Marine Infantry Battalion, or MEU? And then lo and behold, Proofrock 451, that's you, responded. Like, walk me back. You saw this question. What were you thinking?
Well, the first thing I did, there were some responses already, and it was pretty, it was like down in the nitty gritty. Like, well, the Marines could make black powder ammunition. How long does jet fuel remain viable, and just, going into that sort of thing. And I thought, well, this is a story. This is a great story. And so I just started jotting down a few things, and I just researched a little bit as I was going. And you can tell there's a lot of tricky parts where you can tell my research didn't quite get finished. And I got very gently called out on that by some Marines as the story went forward. But I thought to myself, this is a great story, and a great idea for a story. I started writing that story, and I pounded the whole thing out. And then it was the end of my lunch hour. I'm like, well, I don't want to put 8 pages out there because I'll look insane if nobody likes it. So I'll just put out a short section of it and see what people think. And so then I did that, and I went back to my work, and I checked back in 10 minutes, and everything was crazy. And so I just started responding, and people were demanding more and more. So I just, I'll paste the next part. And then I would put pieces of it out there, and I would go back to my work. And Eric Martin told me later, between 12 and when I went home at 5 p.m. Central, over 250,000 people had read this thing.
I remember watching all of this unfold, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And if you got a chance to watch this all happen, it was a really special moment. Now, I don't have a time machine, but I'm going to read the first excerpt right now, and we're going to do our best to recreate what it was like. Can I get some dramatic music? Day 1. The 35th MEU is on the ground in Kabul, preparing to deploy to southern Afghanistan. Suddenly, it vanishes. The section of Bagram where the 35th was gathered suddenly reappears in a field outside Rome, on the west bank of the Tiber River. Without substantially prepared ground under it, the concrete begins sinking into the marshy ground and cracking. Colonel Miles Nelson orders his men to regroup near the vehicle depot. Nearly all of the MEU's vehicles are stripped for air transport. He orders all the helicopters airborne, believing the MEU is trapped in an earthquake. Nelson's men soon report a complete loss of all communications, including GPS and satellite radio. Nelson now believes something more terrible has occurred. Nuclear war, EMP, which has left his unit completely isolated. Only a few men have realized that the rest of Bog Road has vanished. That will soon become apparent as the transport helos begin circling the 35th's location. Within an hour, the 2,200 Marines have regrouped, stunned. They are not the only moderns transported to Rome. With them are about 150 Air Force maintenance and repair specialists. There are about 60 Afghan Army soldiers, mostly the MEU's interpreters and liaisons. There are also 15 U.S. civilian contractors, and one man, Frank Delacroix, who has spoken to no one but Colonel Nelson. Miraculously, no one was killed during the earthquake, but several dozen people were injured, some seriously. All fixed-wing aircraft and attack helicopters were rendered inoperable by the shifting concrete, although the MEU did not lose a single vehicle or transport helicopter. As night falls, the MEU has established a perimeter. A few locals have been spotted, but in the chaos, no one has yet established contact. Nelson and his men, who are crippled without mapping software and GPS to fix their position, begin attempting to fix their location by observing stars. The night is cloudy. Nelson orders 4 helicopters back in the air at first light to travel along the river in hopes of locating the settlement. So it should be easy to see how people were so riveted by this. Hell, even the music underneath my reading of this was a song that some random person, wrote for a potential Rome Sweet Rome soundtrack.
Thousands of people wanted to see the next installment of this story. TikTok Clock, username of the guy who actually came up with Rome Sweet Rome.
The name.
Yeah. Create a subreddit for this guy, and somebody said, call it Rome Sweet Rome. And by the time I came back to check, there were 3,000, 4,000 people in there. And they were already doing posters and mock-ups, and some of the stuff that was created was just amazing. There was one guy who did 3 or 4 tracks from a soundtrack for Rome Sweet Rome. There were a couple of amazing fan trailers on YouTube for Rome Sweet Rome. One of them has a professional narrator who they grabbed out of the AMA subreddit.
We actually have the audio for that fan-made Rome Sweet Rome trailer here. You can find the video link in the show notes.
The Roman Empire flourished, unchallenged for a millennia. Until an accident of history brings the modern age to the ancient world. The mind of Proof 451. Comes a living epic of war across time. Rome, sweet Rome.
I think so much of it was just like this shared experience. And at the time, it was something that I think was really new for Reddit, to have someone like try and do something like that in real time while thousands of people are watching. It's amazing what you can unleash when you harness competition to social interaction. What really hooked me with Reddit was, oh, well, if I'm doing something good, I'll get feedback for it. And I have a couple of the guys who did some of the fan art, James Gilead and Chris Connell, are actually illustrators on my new book, Acadia.
And it all started with one Reddit post. Rome Sweet Rome was a hit. The internet was in love with James's story, but that alone wouldn't be very podcast worthy now, would it? We'll have the rest of the story right after a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Igloo. Igloo is an intranet you'll actually like. Great intranet is a valuable resource for teams to communicate and build on, and that's why Igloo software obsesses over it. Serena from Igloo actually lets us know that she uses it in her household in order to divvy up chores and help family members communicate and check up on one another. One of the coolest things about Igloo, though, is that it is free for up to 10 people. So it's essentially free for many of you startup founders, and it is a great Canadian company that wants to grow with you. So try Igloo today at igloosoftware.com/upvoted. That's igloosoftware.com/UPVOTED. Now, back to James's story. Rome Sweet Rome didn't just live on the internet. Even Hollywood began to take notice, and take notice really, really quickly.
That first day before I went home, I mean, like, this all started like blowing up like 1 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock, I emailed my wife and I said, "Hey, just so you know, I did this thing online. It really blew up." And she was like, "Oh, that's great." And an hour after that, I had an email from a producer in Europe who said, "I'll give you $10,000 right now for what you've written, and if it becomes a screenplay later on, I'll give you $100,000." And I had offers from some huge websites saying they wanted the rights to publish what was left of the story, and I got a message from a management firm in LA called Madhouse, and they said, "We think this could be a screenplay. We think you should, give us a call. We can give you some advice, and we can work together on this." And so, I'm driving home with my wife, and I said, "So remember when I said that was kind of popular?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, here's all the offers I've gotten today." She said, "Holy shit!" It was just amazing. So by the time I got home that night, it was already kind of a foregone conclusion that this was worth thousands of dollars. It was crazy. It was just absolutely crazy. Within a week, we'd agreed to work with Madhouse.
That manager from Madhouse was a fellow Redditor, Adam Kohlberger.
James Irwin is a literary client of my management production company, Madhouse Entertainment, based in Century City, California. Rome Sweet Rome was initially sent to me via another screenwriter client of mine, who he tipped me off one morning to say, "Yeah, this is something that's really interesting," and he knew that I was a user and went in there and started reading. What drew me in was the prose and the eloquence that James was showing over the course of his sort of day-by-day analysis of this question. That, to me, defined what I was most excited about, where I looked at that and said, and people ask me this all the time, writers from around the world, how do you know voice? And it's always a good example to show them what James did, which it shows a voice. It shows his grasp of this arena, and shows his ability to actually write dialogue, if you will, but be able to write and be a storyteller, and that's the secret sauce of screenplays and screenwriters, is the ability to the God-given ability, if you will, to be a writer and to execute on the page. Literally the first weekend, I've got interest from Warner Brothers generally in sort of James and this idea, and it was Labor Day weekend, and I sent on James on Friday multiple files, and in those files I sent him screenplays to look at in terms of format and act structure, and dialogue, and character movements, and things like that, and description, and set pieces. And I think I sent him initially 20 screenplays, which, if you do the math, that's at least 100 pages each. Anyway, on Monday, I speak to James and said, "Okay, cool. I sent you some stuff on Friday, hoping it was helpful." And he said, "Yeah, I read everything." And I said, I'm sure you saw the email and you read it and whatever. No, I read it all. And I said, "Okay, you read everything I sent you. We're talking a couple thousand pages." "Yep, read it all. I'm ready to go. Ready to write a movie." So the following day, I got a follow-up phone call from Warner Brothers, and they said, "Look, we love what this could be. There's a movie in here. What does it look like? What does that movie look like?" And I sort of riffed at that point, and they said, "Great, love that. Let me call you back this afternoon." And it was, I want to say it was 4 or 5 hours later, and they called back and said, "Okay, we want to buy it." And I said, and they said, "What does that mean?" And to you, meaning me as the seller. And I said, "James Irwin will write the draft of this movie for you." And they said, "Great, here's our offer." And that was the start. I mean, that was literally the entire process, where I was able to call James and say, "Are you sitting down? Because here's what just happened."
What is, by the standards of that industry, what is lightning speed? 2 weeks after I typed the first word, I had a deal with Warner Brothers to write a story and screenplay based on this thing I punched out of my lunch hour. And 2 months after that, it was, a signed deal, and we announced it. And 2 months after that, I had turned in my first draft of the story. It was a real thing.
To be involved with something that quickly took a turn that became a life-changing event for one family meant everything in the world to me.
It's not only crazy that this was bought directly off of Reddit, but that it was bought without even being a finished screenplay.
It's incredibly rare for them to do anything without having a finished screenplay in hand. There's legends of the 2 or 3 projects where someone says, "Snakes on a plane," or some other amazing logline, and they're like, "We'll give you $1,000 million for it." Like, for example, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, they have an archive of, I want to say it's 50,000 screenplays, and they add 2,000 more every year. And out of that giant pool of screenplays, the studios buy maybe 100. On top of that, you look at the screenplays the studios commission, or the spec screenplays that they buy. Out of that pool, they maybe end up producing 1 in 10. Like, those are the films that get filmed. And of the films that get filmed, so many of those get sent straight to DVD, or they just sit on a shelf. So to get as far as it's gotten, that right there is so much farther than so many films get. It's obviously, it's not in production now. I don't know if it ever will be. I have to stay optimistic, because it's not the longest by far any film has taken to actual greenlighting, and I still hold out hope that someday they will come back to it.
So after 3 years of enduring Rome Sweet Rome's arduous Hollywood development process, it was incredibly important to James that his next project had 100% creative control. This included taking full ownership of the content as well as how it was released. That's what spawned Acadia, a project he actually worked on with Red Pig to get launched on Kickstarter.
And after having a screenplay out there and seeing what happened to it, it was important to me that something be out there that was my ideas and my voice from beginning to end. And that's what Acadia really is. Acadia it's a science fiction story, so it takes place about 100 years in the future. And it's about a time in history when a lot of things that had been coming to a boil sort of come to a boil. And there are a few people who find themselves faced with making decisions that are going to change the future of humanity. So thanks to all of you who are listening, who are Kickstarter backers, who made that possible. And February 2015, the novel comes out, and that's going to be available to the general public. But I'll be doing a little bit of travel to support the book. And there's also, if you go to prooflock451.com, there is a link there for a mailing list, and I'll be announcing everything through that as well.
Not a day goes by where James takes these opportunities or how much he's learned in the process for granted.
Boy, I can't even begin to say what that's meant for me, as not just as a professional, but as a writer, a storyteller in general. The first thing that I would say to any writer is write. It's important, it's vitally important that you write something that's important to you. I don't think Rome Sweet Rome would have happened had I been calculating this is going to be popular. I just wrote what I wanted to write. I mean, if you look at the business case for selling screenplays, it's insane. You might as well buy lottery tickets because there's a lot less time involved and you have the same odds. I mean, if you're going to go to a job every day, I mean, like, it's half your waking life. Just be interested in what you're doing. If you're not interested, by God, find something else.
Lastly, James wanted to leave a message for all of you Redditors out there.
I think that all of us have a responsibility, if we're going to be part of the community, to be part of the community, to participate. And that, like I said, that doesn't just matter of creating content, it's a matter of being involved with the content that you see.
So what does that mean? Supporting each other and originality and new and fresh ideas. I mean, that's art in general. That's what we're all here doing.
Before we go, here's one more word from our sponsors. This episode of Reddit's Upvoted is also brought to you by FreshBooks. When you're becoming an entrepreneur, participating in entrepreneurial endeavors, or working on your very own Hollywood screenplay, it's really important to stay on top of your finances. This is one of the least fun parts of having a business, but one of your most crucial. Taking care of your accounting doesn't have to be something you dread. With FreshBooks, you can do time tracking, check your invoices, and handle anything your business needs with the utmost ease. I'm a big fan. In fact, I've been a long-time FreshBooks subscriber well before they signed up as a sponsor. For a 30-day free trial with no credit card, just go to freshbooks.com/upvoted. That's freshbooks.com/UPVOTED. You can keep up with James at proofrock451.com. That's PRUFROCK451.com. He's also that username on Reddit. In fact, he has his own Reddit community, r/proofrock451. And his new book, Acadia, is actually available right now for pre-order. That's right, for the first time ever, you can get Acadia. Go pre-order it. James is an extremely talented writer, and I'm so excited that he was able to get this big break using the Reddit platform, and I hope this is not the last we hear of him. I have a feeling it's not. You can, as always, get in touch with all of us at Upvoted over at the Upvoted Reddit community, r/Upvoted. Subscribe. Let us know what you think about this episode. We'll have a post up for it. Comment away. And as always, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, whatever you prefer. Please review us, rate us. We want your feedback. Let's do this again next week on Upvoted by Reddit.